I want to tell you a little bit about what we're going to be listening to tonight. Tonight, our workshop is called Auditory Processing, Decoding, and the Secret to Spelling. So she's going to talk about how to teach reading and spelling at home or in the school, whatever. And Bonnie Terry is with us. She's a board-certified educational therapist, and she deals with learning disabilities, dyslexia. She's an ADHD specialist and co-founder of Scholar Within. Okay, so Bonnie's going to share with us information on auditory processing, decoding, and the secret to spelling. She's going to give you some steps to make it easier for you to help your kids. Okay, and she's also the author of so many things: 5 minutes to better reading skills, 10 minutes to better study skills, making spelling sense, and the Scholar Within reading and spelling programs at scholarwithin.com. Her curriculum materials are used worldwide, which is fantastic. And Bonnie is a frequent media guest. She's a mother of 3 gifted kids that also happen to have ADHD as well as several learning problems. She'll be speaking on auditory processing, decoding, and the secret to spelling, which is why we named it that. So without any further ado, I am going to turn it over to Bonnie Terry. Bonnie, you're on.
Thank you so much, and thanks for that great introduction. And I'm so glad to be here partnering with you and the Southern California branch of IDA. I always have a great time when we do these, even though it's been a little bit of a while. I always have fun sharing this information. Again, we're talking about auditory processing, decoding, and spelling. This is a topic very close to my heart, as my husband and daughter both struggled with spelling. My husband, I found out when we were in college, he would drop his papers off and say, "Can you type this up for me? It's only due in 3 hours." And of course, I had a class in between, and then I'd look at it and it's like, "What word is this? What word is that? Oh, no." So needless to say, it wasn't a big surprise when my daughter also struggled with spelling. As a result, I have spent many years researching spelling, as well as auditory, visual, and tactile kinesthetic processing and its impact on learning. In fact, at one point, I was actually double teaching spelling to be able to incorporate auditory processing to the spelling lessons. And I thought, you know, there's got to be an easier way, because my kids, their learning just really sped up when I was doing it that way, but I was taking twice as long. I figured there had to be a way to streamline that. And so spent a lot of time and figuring that out, and I'm going to share that process with you as we proceed. But the first thing I'm going to talk about is what auditory processing skills have to do with reading, because they have to do a lot with reading as well as with spelling. And then we're going to get into the 5 steps that increase your auditory processing skills, decoding skills, and spelling skills. Again, I'll take questions at the end. It kind of gets difficult if I keep stopping and answering questions. I kind of never get to the end. So if we hold them off to the end, I can address all of them then. I do have a special bonus for everyone that I will share at the end of the webinar. I know you won't want to miss out on that, because it's 3 special items that I'm giving away for free. And we talked about questions at the end, and I do want to thank you for taking time out of your day. I know for some of you it's quite late, and I do appreciate you taking the time to tune in. As I was preparing for today, I realized that I needed to get you a bit of technical information. I'll try to keep it down to a minimum, but I really want to give you an understanding of auditory processing, and then we'll get into the down and dirty of how it applies to learning, and we'll wrap up with some specific actionable steps, and I hope that works for all of you. We're going to be going on a journey. It's a 5-step journey of discovering how auditory processing impacts how we learn to spell and read. And in order to talk about auditory processing, we need to understand in general how we learn, and this will make it easier for you to help your kids. So I'm going to give you a quick understanding of how you learn with just a couple of slides, and then we'll get into auditory processing. Doing this will make it easier for you to learn how you learn efficiently and effectively once you understand how we learn. Of course, we all learn through the senses. No matter your skill level or grade level, we all learn through the senses. So let me elaborate just a little bit on that. We all have 5 senses: taste, smell, seeing, hearing, and doing. And of course, the doing is the tactile kinesthetic area. Within each of those, there are subcategories. For example, with taste, we can taste sweet, sour, salty, and bitter. And we often choose according to those unique tastes. For example, potato chips or popcorn for the saltiness, ice cream for sweetness, lemons for sour, chocolate can be sweet or bitter. We get that. Of course, there's different areas of taste. And just like different areas for taste, there are subcategories to smells, as well as vision, auditory, and tactile kinesthetic systems. There are 9 categories in each of them. And so in the visual processing system, we have motor skills, memory, closure, tracking, figure ground, discrimination, and form constancy, as well as language association, language classification, and integration. Comparably, in auditory processing, we have coordination, memory, closure, auditory visual integration, figure ground, discrimination, language association, language classification, and integration. And in the tactile kinesthetic areas, we have body image, sensory perceptual, laterality, directionality, locomotion, contact, spatial temporal, motor, and sensory motor integration. And reading actually involves all of these different processes. The vision system, auditory system, and tactile kinesthetic systems are at the core of learning. They are the foundations of learning. In our program, we do specific daily activities that develop your child's visual, auditory, and tactile kinesthetic areas of processing. We do this in a variety of ways within our content lessons, as well as our executive function and brain-body activities. There are specific methods that work and are effective and efficient. This is why no matter if you are at grade level, above grade level, or below grade level, your skills improve. To begin with, what do auditory processing skills have to do with reading and spelling? Just think about sounds for a minute. Sounds are all around us, whether they are sounds of nature, sounds of ducks quacking, geese honking, or turkeys gobbling. Each of them, the ducks, the geese, and the turkeys, make noise. Each of them communicates with their friends through sounds. We don't understand the nuances between their quacks, their honks, or their gobbles, but they do. We've just recently located in Sacramento temporarily. I'll be back up in Auburn in a couple of months, but I live very close to the American River right now. And I go over almost daily to say good morning to the ducks and the geese. And the turkeys are all around us. At times I'm recording and I'm hearing the turkeys gobbling right outside my window. And so, we have this kind of thing going on. And as I approach, they hear, there may be just 2 or 3 or 4 ducks or geese around. And all of a sudden, there are 20 or more ducks or geese. They've all heard by quacking and honking that there's food to be had. So just as the ducks, geese, and turkeys communicate, we communicate too. And we do that by putting sounds together to make words. And sometimes we do this slowly. For example, t, e, n. And sometimes we do this quickly, 10. And that gets into the speed of sounds. We also know that sometimes language can appear to be muddy or garbled or unclear, and speech is hard to understand. Sounds impact us whether they are loud or soft. They impact what we do and how we read, and so does vision, what we see around us, and tactile kinesthetic sensations, the physical doing. So we're going to go ahead and take a deep dive now into auditory processing. What is auditory processing? This is your ability to interpret sounds that you hear. Auditory processing skills involve the ability to organize, interpret, and give meaning to information that is heard. Just like the ducks, geese, and turkeys make different types of quacking, honking, and gobbling sounds to let others know about food or danger, we give meaning to what is heard. Much of what constitutes central auditory processing is actually pre-conscious. Excuse me, I didn't mean to move that so fast. That is, it occurs before a listener's conscious awareness. What is experienced by the listener is an auditory perceptual event. Sounds come into the brain and we subscribe meaning to them. We make associations with the sounds. We classify the sounds. Getting back to quacks and honks, we associate quacks to ducks and honks to geese. And we classify both ducks and geese as waterfowl. So we're constantly associating things and classifying them. So let's get into the 9 areas of auditory processing. First, I'm going to define what the area is, then I'll explain what happens if that area is difficult for a student. Auditory visual coordination. This is the ability to use hearing and seeing at the same time. This is the ability to be able to follow oral directions with a worksheet. For example, find the box in row 1 and put a red circle on it. If a student is having problems with this, it's going to take them a long time to complete assignments. They'll lose his or her place when following along with oral reading. They'll avoid reading and writing assignments. They'll have trouble summarizing. They'll have trouble taking notes from a lecture or oral presentation. Auditory memory is the ability to remember an auditory stimulus accurately, the ability to store and retrieve information that has been given with an auditory stimulus. In other words, this is the ability to remember that you have heard a story, a sentence, a fact, or a word before. It is also the ability to remember auditory directions, instructions, and lectures. Problems here will lead to difficulties retaining or recalling auditory experiences or directions. Some students find it hard to recognize auditory stimuli that they've heard before. Others remember hearing it, but they cannot reproduce it accurately. When given a list of things to do, some children remember only the first direction, some only the last. Quite often, the middle one just kind of goes out the window. Auditory memory problems can also lead to low factual knowledge because they are not retaining the information. Auditory closure is the ability to combine sounds that are presented orally to make words. For instance, when given these sounds, k, a, t, auditory closure is the ability to bring those individual sounds together to make the word cat. Problems here are going to lead to difficulties with sounding out words, discriminating between sounds, attending to stimuli, auditory stimuli, filling in the gaps when the student misses parts of words or conversations. These problems can also lead to incorrect English usage and spelling. Auditory visual integration is the ability to accurately relate an auditory sound with a visual symbol. This is known as the alphabetic principle. Given the sound of a telephone ringing, would you match it with a picture of a doorbell, a telephone, drums, or a whistle? Another example would be hearing the sound of a letter and being able to identify the letter that the sound made. For example, given this sound, would you match that sound to the letter P, F, G, or H? So connecting letters with the sounds that they represent. Again, this is known as the alphabetic principle or phonics. Problems here are going to lead to a hard time learning about time, having trouble following directions, avoid reading aloud, and making many spelling errors. Auditory figure ground. This is the ability to auditorily attend to the designated stimulus and not be distracted by the background. This is also your ability to focus on someone speaking and to be able to ignore background noises or other sounds. And the other day, it was hysterical. My husband and I were driving, and the road was very noisy. And the radio was on, and then he started saying something to me. And there was no way that I could understand what he was saying. I was really having auditory figure ground problems. And I said, this is the perfect example. I turn off the radio, and he's like, what are you talking about? And I said, this is a perfect example of auditory figure ground. So problems are going to show up when your student has difficulty listening to directions when there's background noise. Your student might get headaches when there's too much noise. That used to happen with one of my kids all the time. We'd be in the car and there's 5 of us. And he said, would you guys shut up? I'm getting a headache. It was just too much noise. Your student might be distracted by everything that's going on in the classroom, background conversations, outside noises, rather than listening to you. We often think of this as students with ADHD, and sometimes it is, but sometimes it is only a problem with auditory figure ground perception. Auditory discrimination. This is the ability to discriminate between words that are similar or different in the way they sound. For example, mob and mop, vary and berry, scream and stream, mesh and mush. Problems show up when a student has difficulty acquiring, understanding, and using spoken language. And discrimination problems can also lead to poor spelling. Auditory language association. This is the ability to associate objects with each other that are presented orally. The ability to associate items from an oral stimulus is a precursor to classifying them. You need to see the relationship between one item and another before you can group it into a classification. So this is your ability to connect spoken words with objects that they represent. The relationship between a doorbell ringing and the doorbell would lead you to understand that doorbells are items that would be classified with doors rather than items that belong in a kitchen. Another example would be being able to answer the question, would pencil go with wall or paper? How would you associate that? Problems show up when a student has slow vocabulary growth, difficulty learning new skills, difficulty learning prefixes, suffixes, and root words, trouble with open-ended questions, a poor grasp of abstract concepts, difficulty understanding oral directions, and problems with synonyms and antonyms. Auditory language classification. This is your ability to classify objects by category when presented in pairs orally. This is taking your ability to associate items to the next level. For example, would you categorize boy with dress or man? Auditory classification problems show up in a similar way to those with language association problems. So in addition to the areas that I mentioned as being problematic with association problems, a student will have difficulty taking notes from an oral presentation, making connections with them, difficulties holding 2 or more concepts in relationship to each other, identifying and verbalizing concepts, learning to classify or categorize concepts. Given an oral list, it might be difficult to classify where the item on the list would belong. Both auditory language association and classification really get into understanding the relationships of sounds and words in the world. For example, the ability to classify sounds or words that are used at home versus those used at school, at the movie theater, or at a soccer game. Auditory integration is your ability to combine all of the areas of auditory processing together. This is the ability to integrate all of the auditory system together to gain meaning from auditory stimuli. Problems will lead to a decreased ability to get information from what is heard. It will lead to poor comprehension, poor understanding of what you have read, and difficulty in following instructions. So that being said, What is the impact of auditory processing on reading and spelling? And as we get into auditory processing, reading, and spelling, we must be aware of the 5 principles to teaching reading as they encompass teaching spelling. That's phonemic awareness, which is your ability to manipulate sounds in language. Phonics and spelling, your ability to match sounds to letters, the alphabetic principle. Fluency, your speed or rate of reading without conscious attention to the mechanics of reading. Vocabulary, your word knowledge and factual knowledge base. And comprehension, your ability to understand, analyze, synthesize, and use what you have read. Again, today our focus is on auditory processing, decoding, and spelling, which is encoding. There is a specific continuum that auditory processing develops. You'll notice these skills are present in learning to decode, read, and encode, spell. The first step is auditory awareness. Then we have auditory discrimination, auditory identification, and auditory comprehension. That being said, and you have all of these on your handout, so I'm not going to take the time to go into each of those. We're going to go ahead and dive further. Remember, all of these auditory processing skills are foundational to reading. Phonemic awareness is your ability to hear, identify, and manipulate the individual sounds or phonemes in spoken words. It's the ability to segment words into phonemes. Phonics takes that phonological awareness of sounds and matches the sounds to the letter symbols. Again, this is called the alphabetic principle or auditory visual integration. This is the ability to accurately relate an auditory sound with a visual symbol. The beginning of this is to be able to match a word that is given orally to the picture of it. And so that's typically what we do in the preschool years as well as kindergarten and even first grade. We'll have worksheets that will have a picture and you're going to match the word with the picture. As we get further into this section, I want you to notice how these skills are impacted by multiple areas of auditory processing. They're impacted by auditory figure ground, auditory discrimination, auditory closure, auditory memory, auditory visual integration, and auditory integration. Each area is involved with this. So what are the specific phonemic awareness components? The first is phoneme blending. Children listen to a sequence of separately spoken phonemes and then combine the phonemes to form a word. For example, we'll say d, a, g, and we'll push them together and we get the word dog. This is the process used in decoding words. Let's take a look at phoneme segmentation. This is where children break a spoken word into its separate phonemes. So if I say the word truck, we hear 4 different sounds. T, r, a, k. So this is phoneme segmentation. This is the process used in spelling words phonetically, or often known as invented spelling. Phoneme awareness instruction can help preschoolers, kindergartners, first graders, and older, less able readers. It's also important for older students as they're sounding out bigger and bigger words that they may not be familiar with. The most important forms of phonemic awareness to teach are blending and segmentation. Blending and segmentation are the processes that are centrally involved in reading and spelling words. Phonemic awareness can be taught and learned no matter what your age. We even have high school kids and adults that are learning and improving their skills. Phonemic awareness can help students learn to read and spell. It's foundational to learning to read and spell. The relationship between phonemic awareness and learning to read and spell is relational. It is reciprocal. In other words, phonemic awareness helps children learn to read and spell, and working with letter-sound relationships improves your phonemic awareness. Again, phonemic awareness is the child's recognition of sounds and word parts. Phoneme segmentation is hearing 2 parts of a word or 3 parts of a word. For example, when you have a multi-syllable word, balloon, we have 2 parts, 2 syllables. Segmentation, we have 4 parts, 4 syllables. You can also improve phonemic awareness skills with rhyming words such as cat, sat, hat, fat, and flat, or even words that begin with the same sound: cat, cake, castle, cookie. So let's move on to step 4. Reading is the foundation of learning, where we get more into the methods to incorporate auditory processing skills. Excuse me. There is a systematic process to teach reading and spelling. According to the National Reading Panel, there are 5 principles of reading, and spelling is going to encompass the first 2 principles: encoding, phonemic awareness and phonics. Then there's reading fluency, decoding quickly and accurately, vocabulary, that's your word knowledge and factual knowledge base, and comprehension, your understanding of what you read or listen to. And we're going to focus mostly on those first 3 because they inform vocabulary and comprehension. Evidence actually points to getting the best outcomes when reading is taught in a systematic way. Dr. Louisa Moat states, research shows that learning to spell and learning to read rely on much of the same underlying knowledge. Learning more about the relationships between letters and sounds and how a proper understanding of spelling mechanics can lead to improved reading. So how do you do this? Well, we help teach your kids in a step-by-step manner, which makes reading easy. My son and I have tried many reading and spelling programs. This one has made the most significant difference. It trains the brain to think of reading and spelling in ways beyond rote memorization. In addition, the program is enjoyable and effective. As a result, my son now has increased confidence as a reader, and I feel better prepared to help him with his learning. Each of these 5 principles are included in a step-by-step activity-based way in our program, and we always suggest having multiple activities in any reading program. You want to use a step-by-step program that includes all of the 5 principles of reading that are critical for reading and spelling success. We do this by alternating schedules of daily work, and we add in a few extra activities to round out learning. Everything's research-based, results proven, tailored to your kids' reading and spelling level, and you're able to advance at your own speed. So you see, I'm showing 2 different days there. One, we focus more heavily on reading. The other day, we focus more on spelling, and we just rotate through the week in that manner. So let's go ahead and take a closer look at all of this, bringing everything together. We're going to see how auditory processing impacts spelling and the process to use to improve auditory processing skills as well as spelling skills. Then we'll move on to improving decoding skills. Again, we're starting off with the spelling. Phonemic awareness helps you to identify sounds correctly, and phonics connects the sounds to the letters that they represent. Spelling is the inverse of reading. Reading is decoding words or sounding them out, whereas spelling is encoding words or putting letters together to form words. Spelling is based on sounds. Spelling is systematic. You can learn the formula to spelling, and you can learn why we spell words the way we do. So we're going to do this in an auditory, visual, and tactile way with spelling patterns. So I have a quick question for you. I want you to think about this. You can even raise your hand and answer if this has ever happened to you. When you were growing up, Did you ever get a list of spelling words from your teacher that didn't seem to have any rhyme or reason? I hope not, but this is far too often the case in school. Often the spelling list just looks like kind of a hodgepodge of words, not a whole lot of rhyme or reason to them. So what we do is we group each week a set of 10 words according to their spelling patterns. This way, kids will start out to be able to identify words that follow the same spelling patterns. They're able to associate them and categorize them by patterns. So let me show you what I mean here. I have a slide up there. It's from one of our videos, and it has the letter CT. Is there any meaning there? What does it say? But what happens if I do this? I put an A in the middle. We have the word cat. Or if I change the A to an O, we have the word cot. And I change the O to a U, we have the word cut. By adding a vowel in between the letters, we have words. And all of these words are in what we call the vowel consonant pattern. That's where you're going to have one vowel and a consonant following it. The vowels act as the star of the words. They give voice to the words. They give the pizzazz. We recognize that without a vowel, all you have is letters stuck next to each other with no meaning. The vowel pattern always starts with the first vowel. You can have no beginning sounds, like in the word at. You can have one beginning sound, like in the word cat. You can have two beginning sounds, like in the word stop. You can even have three beginning sounds, like in the word strip. So we recognize all of those beginning sounds, and then we have our vowel pattern. And this works when you have multisyllable words. You can have the word picnic, beginning sound, vowel pattern, beginning sound, vowel pattern. And the word robin, beginning sound, vowel pattern. Oh, now we're right into a vowel pattern because the next letter is a vowel. Altogether, we have 8 spelling patterns. In our lessons, we give a sound at a time so your child can identify which sounds are represented by which letters. And this combines phonemic awareness and phonics. We give your kids the formula to English and teach why we spell the words the way we do. Because over 90% of words follow spelling patterns. So if we were learning the first pattern, where I start everyone, no matter what grade level you are, we just use more difficult words for older grades, your lesson could start out like this. Write the letter that represents this sound, K. And typically they'll write a C. If they're not sure, I will say with a C, because as we all know, the letter K makes the same sound. Now I want you to write the letter that represents this sound, ah. And write the letter that represents this sound, T. Now pull those sounds together. What do you have? K, ah, t, cot. And what pattern would that be? It's got a beginning sound and then the vowel pattern, vowel, consonant. Again, vowels are the star of the word, and they can give different sounds according to the vowel patterns. So here's examples of each vowel pattern. We have kit, kite, rain, arm, doll, no, sung, and law. And vowel patterns always start with the first vowel. So let's see what that looks like in a spelling lesson after learning the vowel consonant silent E pattern. And I typically explain each pattern with a little story. So for the vowel consonant silent E pattern, I explain how the letter E kind of curls up like a snake, and it's going to be hissing at the vowel that's in front of it. What's your name? Well, the vowels are afraid to give their nickname sounds, or Instead, there's a snake there asking what's their name, so they say A, E, I, O, U. And the U says, do you think I'm always going to say you? I don't think so. I think I'm going to see if I can fool you. So sometimes I'm going to say oo instead. And so they learn that pattern, vowel, consonant, silent E. So with that being said, I want you to write down the letter that represents this sound, or think about it. S, A. Now think about what you're going to need because the A said its name. And so we have S-A-M-E. Pull it together. What does it say? Same. And what would the pattern be? Vowel, consonant, silent E. Now, I know that most spelling programs teach spelling with over 30 spelling rules, and I find it much easier to teach the structure of the language as there are only 8 spelling patterns to learn. Again, learning 8 things is a lot easier than learning 30. And so many of my students have auditory memory difficulties or visual memory difficulties. It's kind of like I set them up for failure if I expect them to remember 30 spelling rules. It's much easier to understand and remember the structure. Again, the English language has a structure. There are 8 primary spelling patterns, and we use phonics and auditory processing skills along with the structure of the language to learn how to spell. When you learn how to use the patterns, you can spell tens of thousands of words. Again, this method has many benefits. As we become lazy with our speech, we don't always enunciate the sounds. This process makes kids see the connections between the sounds and the letters they represent and helps them also to pronounce words more accurately. Learning to spell systematically with a sound at a time strengthens all 9 areas of auditory processing. So what does this look like in our lessons? We teach with video lessons. We teach the spelling pattern. Then we give a sound at a time, and the kids write each individual sound down, and they have a sheet that they do this with. And then they pull those sounds together and say the word, and then they will hear the word. So it's self-correcting. Here's one of our younger students doing that. And then after they've written their word and said it, they'll write the pattern. And then for each level, there's a variety of spelling activities, and it's going to change according to your level. And here's some pictures of an older student's worksheets. And as the students get older, they even have sentences where they write down the spelling patterns for each word in the sentence. And so they're working again with categorizing and associating at the same time as learning their spelling. And here's some other slides of lessons. And you'll notice that there are more complicated words as you get older. Obviously, you have more complicated words. And on the far right, that 5th picture is of our test sheet where students write each sound down and they say the word, they rewrite it and write their spelling pattern. And then we do a couple of things with that. And before we have the test, then they fold their papers and we do the test. And all of this they do with the video lessons. The videos made all the difference in the world. The spelling videos showed me step by step the structure. You really made spelling easy for my kids. So let's go ahead with bringing it together and take a closer look at decoding. And that's going to involve our reading fluency. Reading fluency is the ability to read smoothly and quickly, reading without effort and attention to the mechanics of reading. There is a key link between reading fluency and comprehension. And even though there is this key link between reading fluency and comprehension, it's not generally taught in school. We have proven results with 5-year independent studies that show significant growth in reading fluency among those using our custom-designed reading fluency drills. So with that in mind, what are the words per minute rates that students should be reading? And these are a spring of each grade level. And I believe you have that slide. First grade will be between 40 to 80 words per minute. But the time you're in 7th and 8th grade, you should be between 180 and 220 words per minute. Now, these are the reading rates for reading out loud, and that's the best way for us to check their accuracy. So obviously, as the more fluent you get, you're able to silent read, and those speeds often go up because it takes a split second longer when you're reading out loud versus silent reading. But for us to check your reading fluency, we need you to be reading out loud. We do have a free reading screen where you're able to see where your kids are at. And at the end of the presentation, I'm going to show you how you're going to be able to get that for free. So how do we apply this knowledge? Well, we do have some reading fluency training. We have a daily 5-minute reading fluency exercise where kids see their progress on a daily basis. Our drills are research-based, and they train your eye muscles to read more smoothly. Just like in sports, if you want to improve your skills, you have to practice. Whether it's basketball, soccer, bowling, if you're taking music lessons, the same thing, you have to practice. So this exercise trains your eye muscles to read more smoothly from left to right. We use drills that are sequential, phonics-based, and include every vowel and consonant combination in the English language. And again, we have a 5-year study showing significant growth in reading fluency using our custom designed drills, no matter what your age or grade. And I've even had adults do these, and it's hysterical. I've had a client who was in his 40s that owned his own business in real estate, and he was doing this. And you'll see in a moment what the first drill looks like. And it looks like it's going to be really easy. And he calls me up and said, this was harder than I thought it was going to be. You're only competing against yourself, and you're going for accuracy and speed. And he found it was quite quickly that he was able to make progress. So this is what the first drill looks like. All of the words are going to have the short A. The next one will have the short O. Then we're going to review them, and then we're going to add the short I, and so on. You can see the student. It is an actual student, but on the chart that you see, it says Ron Reader because we wanted to protect the name of our student. You can see he started at 28 words per minute with the first time they did it. And by the third time, they were at 42 words per minute. And that's not too shabby with 3 practices, 3 different days. Students typically will see their words per minute go up and mistakes per minute go down almost on a daily basis. Comprehension is another key component of reading skills. So what happens with your kids? Again, think in terms of decoding as well as comprehension. What happens with your kids when they come upon a word that they're not familiar with? Sometimes they'll just gloss over it and hope they can figure out what everything is about. Sometimes it just stops kids in their tracks. Sometimes they look for a student next to them to ask them, or their teacher, or an aide, or a mom, or a dad, or a sister, or a brother. Well, we do have a solution to that. We have what's called tap to read technology that we use, which helps kids read more fluently. They can even, if they don't know what a word is, they can just tap on it and it will tell them the word. And they can also read the whole passage at the same time along with the system, which is a neural impress reading method, which again speeds up their fluency as well as their comprehension skills. And I'll show you how that works in just a little bit. We always suggest doing at least 2 reading selections per week. Our program includes 2 reading selections at your student's reading level, and the reading selections build background knowledge on topics that students should know something about. We have narratives as well as information articles, as well as poetry. A wide variety of types of reading is important for reading skills. And we want to build background knowledge. That's a key piece to building comprehension skills. The larger background knowledge base you have, the easier it is for you to comprehend what you read. And I'm just going to mention comprehension and vocabulary quickly because that's not the focus today. I could do a whole webinar just on that. One of the best ways to ensure comprehension, though, is going to include writing, because writing helps you to become good at thinking. The use of graphic organizers for taking notes helps improve visual memory skills of what you have read, which improves comprehension. Then we're going to follow up with comprehension questions, but not on the same day. We're going to do that a day or two after reading the selections. This is going to work on building longer-term memory skills. Most of my students can read and do the questions right off the bat, no problem. But can they do the questions a day or two later and still get them correct? That's what we really want. We want to be building longer-term knowledge, longer-term memory skills. So we use that process there. I apologize for coughing. I've been fine for days and days and days, and all of a sudden today I get a tickle in my throat. Our last area is vocabulary, and yes, even with vocabulary, we're going to incorporate auditory processing skills. We're going to do this with game playing, and of course, it's going to involve auditory processing skills, decoding skills, and spelling skills, as well as vocabulary skills. This particular game, they're putting the beginnings of words together with the end of the words. Can they make a word? So we have the word speak, we have fray, we have bleak, we have glee, we have strap. So they are putting together words with the cards, and of course they get points for everything they put down. And so we've gone on our journey from A to B. We've talked about how we learn, a deep dive into the 9 areas of auditory processing, the impact auditory processing has on reading and spelling, reading being the foundation of learning, and we brought it all together with step-by-step methods that incorporated auditory processing skills in the methods that we use to teach and learn spelling, encoding, and reading, decoding, as well as comprehension. So I want to quickly show you what some of our lessons look like, just so that it makes it easier for you. We have weeks and weeks of lessons. So on Mondays, across the top, we talk about the items that you're going to be doing that particular day. And we just scroll down to the reading and taking notes. And we have the students' names so they know exactly what to click on. And I've already clicked on coconuts, Megan's reading selection. And you may get a little delay in this. I'm just going to do this very quickly.
Can be found all over the world. Coconut trees can be found in India, the Middle East, Australia, Hawaii, and on many islands in Southeast Asia.
And so if you want to read along with the selection, you can. If instead you just want to click on a word because you're not sure how to spell it, you can just click on a word.
Bermuda.
And it will tell you the word. You can change your speed, a normal speed, a faster speed, a slower speed, even a very slow speed. You can also change the size of the print if you need bigger print or if you need smaller print according to your age. So it's quite flexible there. And again, we have different types of reading. Let me refresh our page here. And so this is a poem, and I'm going to,
Who has seen the wind? Neither I nor you. But when the leaves hang trembling, the wind is passing through.
and so it highlights the words as we read, again, moving from left to right. And so it's been very effective. We have some students that after they've read it themselves, then they read it with the reader and they're able to read even faster. And then again, we have on Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Thursdays, we have spelling lessons, and each student has a video according to their level, and there's a handout for them, and so they're able to do the lesson along with the video. So that kind of gives you a little bit of an idea on how we do that. And we have a lot of schools that also use this with their students. So I hope you've gotten something out of this and learned some new techniques and have seen the possibilities of instruction that emphasizes auditory processing, giving those sounds at a time, pulling them together. And again, we do this at every grade level. We explain the structure of the language, though. That's a real critical piece. So for my older students, even though we may start off with simple words, as they're learning the pattern, they're learning the structure, we move very quickly, and they're getting into multi-syllable words, working with multiple patterns. Doing these processes can make a real difference for your students. And for those of you that have hung in there, we have 3 gifts. We have the free reading screen. We have a free reading fluency drill that you'll be able to download and use with your students, as well as an ebook, How to Learn to Spell with Best Practices Guide. And you'll be able to just go to scholarwithin.com/IDA. And to try the Tap to Read out yourself, we have all different reading selections of different age levels, grade levels, and you can do that by going to scholarwithin.com/read aloud. And at this point, I'd like to go ahead and open up to questions. And so how do we do that, Regina?
Okay, I had to turn my voice back on. Okay, I can read them to you. I can just go down the list and read them to you. Aaron asks, how is this different than what an audiologist would diagnose as CA?
A lot of the areas of CA are in this. What this is doing is giving the methodologies and giving a better understanding, because typically when you're diagnosed with central auditory processing disorder, you aren't always, as the parent or as their teacher, given, oh, this is the specific area that's, causing the problem, or these 5 areas are causing a problem. If you only have 1 or 2 areas, yeah, it's going to cause a little bit of an issue, but it's not going to be a tremendous issue. And so often when, for example, when I'm assessing a student, we go through the 9 areas of auditory processing, the 9 of visual processing, the 9 of tactile kinesthetic. And so from that, we get a really good picture of the overall, where are the problems? Are they everywhere? Are they going to be mostly in the auditory? And if they are mostly in the auditory, do we have any good areas in the auditory system? And so you're able to tailor a little bit more what your emphasis is when you're working with your students. Does that make sense?
Sounds good. Okay, Melissa's asking, will we have access to the webinar? Yes, definitely. It'll come anytime within 1 day or up to 1 week. It depends on where our web guy is. He's floating around the country in his motorhome these days. So, but he promises no, it won't be later than a week. But last time he got it within 1 day, so that was pretty good. Then Catherine asked, are these 8 spelling patterns the same or similar to the syllable division patterns from traditional Orton-Gillingham? They appear to be similar.
They are similar, but our focus is on the vowel patterns so that you can match them, with the way they sound from words to words, whereas where you divide a syllable is slightly different.
Right. Okay, I hope that answers it, Catherine. Diane is asking, I've heard of auditory processing therapy to help older children and teens improve processing speed. Have you heard of this, and does it work with existing programs such as yours?
Yes, and one of the things, for example, as kids get older, you know as well as I do, you are sitting in lectures and they're expected to be taking notes from the lectures, and if they're a slow processor, it's they're missing a lot of bits and pieces. Using these systems that we use strengthens those skills because we're really honing in on specific skills, and so it ends up making it easier for you as you have to take notes later. It's one of those things. Again, just like when you're practicing the fluency skills, it applies as your fluency builds up. It applies to when you're reading text. We typically will do the reading fluency portion, and then we read the text. We do the spelling, and the different processes that we use strengthen all of those individual areas, and so then it becomes easier.
Okay, good. That was Diane. And then Aaron asks, is this program for sale?
Yes, it's available. We have subscription programs as well as, let me think. Oh, I just think about that.
Okay. Aaron also asks, oh, I'm sorry, were you done?
I'm just going over to the main website page, the reading and spelling program. We have individual spelling program, and we also have reading and spelling program. So you just click on the top. And again, we do work with school systems. And when you scroll down, you're able to see a lot more information. And here I have a video explaining things, and you can read more. So we've got tons of information, and then you can, just click on an individual student's different curriculums for different grade levels, things like that. And again, it's here's the Get Started button. And so we have, like I say, it's online, at home, or at school. And you set up how many kids. We have a monthly, a semi-annual, and a yearly program.
Sure seems comprehensive. Let's see, Aaron also says, I am dyslexic and so is my son. Are there lessons on video so that I am not left to essentially say the sounds incorrectly for my child?
Yes, that's exactly why, with my spelling book, a lot of people had difficulty getting the sounds down correctly. And I have spoken at many, many, many teacher conferences, with hundreds of people in the audience, and I'll ask them to give me different sounds, and invariably they'll give some of the sounds correctly and they'll give some of them incorrectly. And it's like, oh my goodness. So to make it so that would not be an issue, I teach you, you do the spelling lesson with me. We have, your watch the video, you have your worksheet. We also have, you can download the worksheets, or we can send you packets that have booklets that, student booklets that they write in. And so I am teaching everything, every step of the way. And so you can do it together. That's not an issue, because I know that can be very tricky. It's like, okay, it's always hard for me. How am I going to do this? Well, we take that away, so I'm teaching it to you. And, we have parents that sometimes they're not sure about the, if the kids are doing their notes correctly. And I just take a picture of it, send it in, and I'm happy to give you a couple of pointers on it. And so those kinds of things are very helpful.
Yeah, I bet.
You know, I had a student, it was hysterical. She did the spelling puzzles and the spelling sentences and the sentences and pattern sheets, and she missed a couple things on the spelling pattern sheets. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't think she actually did the lesson, because if she actually had done the lesson, which is about a 10-minute video, she would have gotten those. And so I messaged her, and you know, I called her on it, and I said, "Did you actually do the lesson?" No. That's why you missed those, because I went into this whole story explanation. And I mean, and there are times that I'll even say, it's okay with the older levels. It's okay if you roll your eyes at me. I don't mind. But you're going to understand how is it that we put letters together to make words. Because when you understand that, you can spell thousands of words and you can read thousands of words, because you understand how they come together and how they're going to come together to make sounds. So your decoding improves as well as your encoding. Does that make sense?
Sure does. Okay, Lisa is asking, is the digital version available for classroom teaching?
Yes.
And then Rosemary's asking, is in addition to PA and phonics, what do you recommend for improving fluency word per minute?
That's what we have, the fluency portion of the program. Let me just click on, here we go, on Monday. Oh, we've got videos that explain. I'm just going to kind of, so, you know, here I am with a student and showing you exactly how to do it.
Short increments of fluency.
And then we have the worksheets are right here. And so we have the directions, we have daily charts that they fill out, and there's different word charts for different, according to how many words per minute they start with. Because some kids may start reading at, you know, say 60 words per minute. Well, then you're not going to give them the sheet that only goes up to 65 words per minute. You know, the younger students, I've had kids that have started reading, say, 8 words per minute, and then they get to 10 to 12 to 15. And, you know, they move on to the next drill. We always put a blank line in between. We always write the number of the drill and the dates on them. And so there's different sheets for you to use. Like I said, we send all of this information. You have your choice of downloading the sheets or paying for the box of materials. And the box of material includes the card games that are already printed out for you, so you don't have to print them out, all of that kind of thing. And then we have different size sheets for you, so that according to the grade level, we have an extra large. I see in this view we just have our showing our large and our regular. And again, we cover every vowel and consonant combination in the English language by the time we finish. So all of
Ingrid asks, do you use a Jolly Phonics or any other systematic approach to teaching reading and spelling?
No, I started teaching a long time ago. Probably before most of the people on this were born. I've been teaching a long time.
Well, except the next person says that for your information, I went to one of Bonnie's trainings over 25 years ago, and the improvement I saw in students was amazing. This was before digital options.
Yes, exactly. Well, that's
so that fit in right with what you were saying.
Yeah. Like I say, I've been teaching a long time, and they frankly did not have materials available at that point for working with kids. And so I did a lot of research, a lot of study, a lot of talking with veteran teachers. My first year of teaching, I was an itinerant learning disability specialist, and I would travel from town to town. I was at an elementary school in the morning and a middle school every afternoon. And, you know, it was kind of like in the olden days, you know, because it was a long time ago. And one teacher, special day class teacher, at the junior high, or it was a junior high, not a middle school. It was a 7th, 8th junior high. She did some mentoring of me, and it was great. It was her last year of teaching, and she'd been teaching for 35 years. And so it was great as a first year teacher to be mentored by her. And, you know, so I learned a lot, but, you know, I can't tell you how many, you know, reading conferences I went to, and how to this and how to that, and all the study.
That's the way to learn, to go to the conferences and, you know, meet with other people and all of that.
Exactly. And then I go to the research, and, you know, and so pulling together. And as I say, with spelling, I spent probably 2 years double teaching it, and it was taking twice the time because my spelling lessons are about 10 to 12 minutes long. Well, when I was double teaching it, it was more like 20 minutes. It's like I can't get enough stuff into their session. I need to streamline this. And so
Yeah.
that's when I, you know, came up with the system that I use that combines the auditory processing with the structure. We do it all.
Yeah, that was really cool. Okay, Laura asked, or Laura's stating, thank you very much for this presentation. I'm from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And then Ingrid says, is this program used apart from the school's curriculum, or is it integrated?
It varies from school to school. It really varies.
Okay. Ashley is stating, I apologize. Pardon?
I was going to say, if you're a school that's interested, typically, you know, we need to know how many students, how many different grade levels, you know, I mean, we tailor to your needs. So it's not a one size fits all, because sometimes in a classroom you may, or in several classrooms, you may have several different grade levels. And so, you know, we figure all that out. So if you give us all that information, then we're able to tell you, you know, but like I said, we try to keep everything very affordable, because I've seen programs that parents have spent thousands and thousands of dollars on, and then the students only get so far, and they come to me, and then we really zoom them, you know, because we're addressing all of these different areas. And it's like, man, I wish I came to you before. I'm like, well, I'm sorry, I can't do anything about that, but we did get you moving.
Yeah, right. Okay, Ashley's saying, I apologize if stated before, but what age level is the program designed for? When just beginning reading, or is it start in preschool, or what?
We basically start with a kinder reading level, and I don't have that one open right now. I'm not sure if I can.
Well, that's okay.
I think start with a kinder reading level, so, you know, beginning reader, and we go up through. It's not going to open up to that one, and we go up through an 8th grade reading level. So we often have high school kids that are low in reading or low in spelling, and they will do the program, and because it's going to be at their reading level. And they're going to be, you know, also learning note-taking skills. They're going to be learning doing executive function activities. They're going to be doing brain-body exercises. So we have a wide variety of activities that really make a difference. We teach the planning skills, and then we have additional executive function skills. And for our younger kids, they, you know, do it with either with a teacher or with a parent or with an aide or even an older sibling, you know, if we're talking about the planning skills. When kids are in about 4th, 5th grade on, they are able to start learning how to do that themselves. You know, when we teach you how to set priorities, You know, there's all kinds of things. We do have a lot of video instruction, but once you get into the system, you start to see that each week is very similar. Oh, well, it's Monday, so we're doing X, Y, Z. It's Tuesday, so we're doing A, B, C. It's Wednesday, so we're doing, you know, so it's,
Yeah.
the
Okay.
activities themselves change, but it's very systematic and makes it easy.
Yes, I would imagine. Yeah, Ashley is also asking, she wants to follow up for clarification. Is this program for students with a general reading, spelling, understanding already?
They don't have to have, you know, those skills ahead of time. It's helpful if they do, but they don't. It's not necessary because I start at the beginning.
Okay.
We have
And Lisa's asking for the digital program, is it a yearly subscription?
Yeah, we have a semi-annual subscription as well as a yearly subscription.
Okay, Nick wants to know where the free gifts are. Nick, if you didn't get a handout, go to your panel, your control panel, which is an orange rectangle with a white arrow pointing to the right. And one of the sections will be handouts, and it says 1 of 5. And then underneath that, it says Scholar Within IDA webinar handout. And that's where it's all, you can find all her notes there.
Yep, and here's the different things there.
Okay.
It took me a minute to where my head. I knew I had it up here. It's another time there.
And Lisa says, if I'm interested in this for my students, what's the best way to find out what my school needs are? What information should I have when I contact the Scholar Within? Is email best or phone call?
Email typically, and then if we have additional questions, we'll send them through email, and if we need to have a conference over it, we do that.
Okay. Then Ingrid's asking
it all, and you know that I say I have 10 students, or I've got 3 classrooms, you know, and there's 30 in each classroom, and I'm going to need, are they all the same grade level? Or do I need 2 reading levels? Do I need 3 reading levels? You can do your spelling levels different from the reading levels, because sometimes you're spelling at a different level than you're reading. And so, you know, that's more the information that we need.
Okay. And Ingrid's asking, does the program work with students who have other learning or behavioral challenges?
Yes.
Yeah, I think you mentioned that a little bit.
And
we have a bunch of people saying, thank you, this was great, this is wonderful, thank you for the workshop, it's fantastic, and that kind of wonderful stuff.
Terrific. Yeah, you know, being a learning disability specialist, my background was different than most reading specialists, because I really got into the areas of how we learn and all of the areas of processing. And typically, if you have any kind of learning problem, it's due to one or more of those areas not working as well as it could, should, and can. And so the way I've designed the program is we're addressing all of those 27 areas. And so it's going to help you improve your skills. And we do, all of our activities are short activities, anywhere from 5, 10, or 15 minutes in duration. And so,
okay. And I just want to say, if you haven't gotten your handout yet, or by the time we close the webinar, send me an email at tcbinfo@dyslexia-ca.org. It's on with the login and all of that, and I'd be glad to send it to you.
And if you have any questions from me, you can just send it to hello@scholarwithin.com.
Oh, that's great. Well, Terry, I want to tell you, this has been fantastic. You covered it so thoroughly and so much in depth, and you went right through it, and it was very systematic. It was easy to follow, and I certainly enjoyed it, and I think all the other people did too. Well, I know they did. They're saying thank you and all that stuff. So we want to thank you very much for doing this webinar. It was fantastic.
Well, you are most welcome. I always have a good time with you and with anything I do with IDA. It's always wonderful.
Well, fantastic. And for people that are still on, remember we're having our writing workshop October 15th, and we do have a lot of scholarships for that. So you can get in for like for 20, 25 bucks. So please check it out. And it's on our website under events. It'll give you the link for that. And our website is what I showed you at the beginning. I don't have access to my screen, but it's maybe, let's see. Okay, well, you can send me an email if you want to. You know, that'll be the easiest way. So thank you all. Thank you, Terry. Terry, this was awesome, fantastic, it's wonderful, and we really appreciate it. And thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
And thank you all for spending your evening with us. We really appreciate it.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I so appreciate everybody taking time out of their day. And thank you, Regina, for inviting me. And thank you to IDA.
Oh, you're welcome. And thank you for doing this. We'll do it again sometime.
Take care. And again, any questions, you can just send them to hello@scholarwithin.com.
That's great. Okay. Goodbye, everybody. And thank you very much.